So thank you again. I will share a short presentation with snapshots of some results of our work on improving legal frameworks for human enhancement technologies. The report with more details is available on the SIENNA website, and the following will include only some key general results. As for a scope, I will not discuss the SIENNA definition of human enhancement technologies, as this was already extensively discussed by Philip and Yasmin this morning. And in the regulatory proposals, we simply followed the general SIENNA definition of human enhancement technologies, acknowledging all the difficulties there are with the definition. Our focus was to identify key changes required in legal frameworks to make development and use of human enhancement technologies compliant with fundamental rights and societal values. We have referred to three levels of legal frameworks: international, EU, and national, with a specific focus on the EU level. And since human enhancement is such a diversified field, as it was noticed already many times today, we decided to adopt a systemic case-by-case approach, following the approach proposed in the STAR report from 2009. That meant that we have not adopted a general policy towards the whole field as a whole. We have neither adopted the extreme options of complete rejection of human enhancement technologies as such, or completely accepting them, nor we have not adopted a general pro-enhancement approach or general enhancement skeptic approach. Instead, a case-by-case approach was followed, considering both benefits and risks that different applications, products, and procedures may entail for important societal values. And within this case-by-case approach, in order to develop the most useful regulatory recommendations, we focused on the existing human enhancement technologies and the developments that are possible in the near future, trying to avoid too much speculation about distant future human enhancement technologies. The choice of these plausible human enhancement technologies was primarily based upon the extensive state-of-the-art review conducted with the SIENNA project. It was further supplemented to follow up with the developments in the field. Of course, this approach should not be understood as undermining the role of the broader debates, but only as setting the focus for the regulatory recommendations on what is here and or now, and or what is around the corner. Our proposals were organized along the lines of four important societal values. These values have been identified in the earlier SIENNA work as being among the most affected by human enhancement technologies. They include, as you can see, health and safety, privacy and data protection, autonomy, and equality. And I'll discuss them all, and starting with health and safety. When it comes to health and safety, we looked both at the product safety regulation, aimed at ensuring that products placed on the market meet adequate safety requirements, and on procedures regulation, regulating how these technologies are used. As for the product safety regulation, we have looked closely at an important development in the EU, the new medical devices regulation, that refers to a closed list of 7 general types of devices that are marketed for non-medical purposes. And though the term enhancement is not used in this regulation, they could in fact be qualified as enhancement devices. For example, they include certain types of brain stimulation devices that are not intended for medical purposes, or certain types of cosmetic enhancements. While this was an important development, taking account the expanding market of some of these devices and the speed of innovation, the report discussed that, the selection may quickly become outdated and needs to be regularly updated. In the area of product safety, we have also recommended to apply the broad understanding of risk, the one that goes beyond purely physical risks and take into consideration, for instance, mental health risks or cybersecurity risks, for example, in the context of brain-computer interfaces related to malicious external attacks, data breaches, or losses of connectivity. To a certain extent, the report notices that the current product safety framework recognizes this extended concept of safety, especially for the cybersecurity. But we have recommended the need to assess whether these frameworks are sufficient to address human enhancement technology-specific challenges, related, among others, to the fact that, unlike many other ICT devices, human enhancement devices are connected to human body, according to our definition, and therefore harms inflicted by cybercrimes, for example, could have far greater effects on human health than attacks on traditional computers. As for procedures, we have analyzed some possible ways to address risks that enhancement procedures will fall into regulatory gray zones, where it is unclear which safety standards apply. This challenge is becoming increasingly important as there's a growing market of consumer enhancement devices, such as direct-to-consumer brain stimulation technologies or implants implanted in piercing studios. Some of these technologies, products, procedures do not incur serious safety risks when used under adequate supervision, but may present significant threats to health if self-administrated in an inappropriate way, or if provided as a service by a person who lacks necessary training. We have thus recommended to consider specifying which enhancement procedures should be performed by a trained professional, what kind of professional should that be, what should be adequate professional standards for such procedures, who may undergo such procedures, for example, in terms of age, etc., etc. As for privacy and data protection, we have drawn attention to consider whether the existing privacy and data protection frameworks are sufficient vis-a-vis certain human enhancement challenges. There are many human enhancement devices that process personal data, including sensitive data, such as neural interfaces or wearables. Just notice a recent example, how many concerns were raised by a recent acquisition of one of the major wearable companies, Fitbit, by Google. And last December, the acquisition was eventually accepted by the European Commission, but with a number of specific additional conditions relating, among others, to health and wellness data collected by these wearable devices. So this is already something that is we can see on the policy and regulatory agenda. In the report, we have paid particular attention to concerns related to human enhancement devices that process information with brain activity, sometimes called neurodata or simply brain data. There is some disagreement whether brain data, when processed for enhancement purposes, could always qualify as belonging to the existing special categories of data that enjoy stronger protection. And there's also some discussion whether brain data may be even regarded as more sensitive than these specific sensitive data under the current data protection law. We have therefore recommended to review the data protection framework to assess whether it is in its current form suitable to adequately protect the brain data in the context of human enhancement. If not, it should be examined whether it could be amended, for example, by adding brain data to the list of sensitive data as genetic data was explicitly added to this list, or whether new legal frameworks are needed to address the privacy risks, possibly considering building up upon such concepts as mental privacy or mental integrity, which are also being discussed. With regard to autonomy, we have paid particular attention to the questions related to the principle of informed consent, noting that, again, human enhancement applications may fall into gray zones where it's unclear how existing requirements apply and whether these requirements should differ for human enhancement applications compared to medical interventions, and how should they look like with regard to different types of human enhancement procedures. For instance, while there are usually some legal frameworks for obtaining informed consent for plastic surgeries, which is a form of cosmetic enhancement, in case, for example, of such products as direct-to-consumer neurotechnologies enhancements, information duties may be currently fairly limited or lack clarity in scope. Furthermore, the report discusses also another aspects of making informed choices about participating in enhancement procedures. That is misleading advertising, which we can especially see when it comes to direct-to-consumer products that may trivialize risks or make overblown claims about their benefits. It has already been reported that there are some misleading marketing of some of the existing human enhancement products on the EU market. Therefore, we have recommended to review the current frameworks, which already prohibit, in general, misleading commercial practices, in order to assess whether simply a better enforcement of these existing frameworks, general frameworks, will be sufficient, or whether advertising of human enhancement technologies might call for a more tailored legal response. Finally, when it comes to equality, we have also considered possible ways to address potential risks related to discrimination of enhanced or non-enhanced persons, especially in the workplace or education context that were already discussed today. In such forms as some undesirable pressure to enhance, or in some forms of implicit coercion to enhance, for example, in workplace recruitment. We have discussed that recognizing being enhanced or not enhanced as protected characteristics in terms of discrimination entails many conceptual difficulties, although it may sound as a simple option. For instance, since deciding if a given intervention constitutes a human enhancement is often problematic, one could argue that prohibiting discrimination on this ground may lack necessary legal certainty. We can see that especially when it comes to specific types of enhancement. For example, establishing one's status as being enhanced might be relatively less controversial in some cases, especially with regard to more permanent and concrete types as advanced prostheses, prosthetics, or implants. In other cases, it might be very hard to actually decide whether a person may qualify as being enhanced. For example, in the context of human enhancement technologies that have effects limited only to certain time, such as some pharmaceutical enhancements. Therefore, probably some other options will need also to be considered and discuss them in the report. For example, assessing the relevancy of more general labor law standards, in the general health and safety standards in the context of labor law, in order to address risks of this implicit coercion in the workplace. In the report, we have made also some specific recommendations regarding the discussed values aimed at authorities at the three regulatory levels. And as a way of summing up this presentation, I would now mention some priorities at each of the three levels. At the international level, there's a need for more interpretative guidance on how the existing international law relates to human enhancement challenges. Considering the diversity of this field and the low level of institutionalization of this field so far, a regular approach that seeks to address all the relevant issues in one legal instrument might not be the best way to start now, and a more incremental building of understanding and consensus within the international community with a number of legal instruments, possibly perhaps first soft law instruments, may be more helpful at this stage. At the EU level, the EU could take up more leading role in the data protection in the human enhancement context, especially but not only with regard to the challenges associated with brain data. Moreover, the product safety legislation in the human enhancement context may require further scrutiny following the already some positive steps taken in this area that I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. And finally, on the national level, the legislators should review and monitor how the respective legislation responds to human enhancement challenges and ensure that these responses are in line with the general human rights protection commitments steering from the international EU level.